Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Megan Clark from omniQ, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Let's start by telling you a little bit about us. Now, at omniQ, we're not the ones building your hardware or engineering your wireless platforms. That's Honeywell's domain, and they're really good at it. Our role is making sure it all works well. So from the tech stack to the rollout plan, we make sure all the pieces fit. So your solution isn't just functional, it's actually working for your business. That's why we're here today, to talk through the big picture and share what we've seen work in the field. I'm really glad you're here, and let's introduce today's speakers. So first off, we have Tom LaSousa. Tom's a mobile tech consultant who works on the front line to help teams get the most out of their devices and data. He's spent years helping supply chain and transportation teams simplify operations with smart, scalable tech. At omniQ, Tom focuses on turning complex tools into easy-to-use systems that actually work for your business. And then next up, we have Derek Furla from Honeywell. Derek is a product strategist with a deep background in logistics, supply chain, and transportation. He helps businesses roll out rugged mobility solutions that actually hold up in the real world, improving workflows and keeping frontline teams productive. At Honeywell, he works closely with customers and partners like omniQ to align the right tech with the right goals, so every deployment is built to last and ready to scale. And then rounding out our panel is Matt Sterner from Honeywell. Matt brings deep experience in transportation, logistics, and supply chain from both the tech side and the operational side. At Honeywell, he's led product strategy for voice and software solutions and helped shape the TLW space across North America. Before that, he held key roles in marketing, procurement, and fleet management at Daimler, Mercedes-Benz, Schaeffler, and General Motors. To kick things off, can each of you share a little bit about the wireless challenges you've been seeing most often in logistics and supply chain environments? We could start with Derek on that one.
Absolutely. What goes in my mind is generally making sure I have the right tool for the job. So in this case, finding the right device, form factors, the environment you're in, performance, what you need the device to do, and also connectivity. And all of those factors come into play when you're looking at these, and we'll go into those as well.
Nice. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so Derek touched on a little bit with the selection of the right device. I think one of the big things that we're seeing not only is selecting the right device, but being able to perform that edge computing right in the hand of the worker in the warehouse or in the truck, making their deliveries. So being able to process large amounts of data, get updates as quickly as they can to keep them effective and up to task while they're out doing their jobs.
Excellent. And Tom, what challenges are you seeing most often?
You've got high ceilings, concrete walls, metal racks. All of that can create dead zones where the signal just drops. Then there's interference from other devices, machinery, even neighboring networks. It adds up fast. And honestly, a lot of time it comes down to poor planning. The network just wasn't designed with the space or workload in mind.
Gotcha. Well, I totally understand all those points, and we've got a packed playbook today from understanding the tech to actually putting it to work in your facilities. So some of the things we're going to discuss is 5G, the speed, the scale, and the real-time operations. What makes industrial 5G different? And we'll talk all about CBRS, your private wireless fortress, and then cybersecurity without the slowdown. Also, the role of rugged devices in all of this, and how to assess your facility. And then make sure you submit all of your questions throughout the call. It will go to the Q&A at the end. Ask us anything, use cases, integration tips, and next steps. At the end of the call, we'll be sending out some bonus resources as well, so keep an eye out for that. All right, quick question for the audience. We've already heard from our panelists, but what is your biggest wireless challenge today? Just a moment, let's get this poll out there for you. All right, go ahead and vote, and we'll give that just a minute. Funny, I get to see the results before you guys do. All right. So it looks like we have a bit of a tie between three different things, actually: blind spots and weak coverage, lag or slow performance, and security concerns. Does that surprise any of you panelists, or is this pretty much what you're hearing in the field?
I think that's pretty representative of what we see. We usually hear a lot of those same things. So blind spots and weak coverage. If you're with the Wi-Fi network, you can have issues with that. So there's always a concern there, especially in the warehouse, like Tom said, with the metal racks and inventory and things like that in the way can impact signal strength. So that's definitely one of the things that we see.
Makes sense.
And then also the lag and slow performance, which you touched on with, being able to do some of the edge computing. So being able to get the data to the device as quickly as you can and perform the work right there on the mobile computer while you're in the workflow.
Nice. It seems like, honestly, all of these are concerns that people are having, especially not sure that's why I'm here. So let's make sure we address that one. All right. So let's start by talking about CBRS. This question is going to go to Matt. Why are more logistics teams turning to private wireless, and how is that different from just adding another Wi-Fi access point?
Yeah, so let's start a little bit and we'll back up here and we'll explain exactly what CBRS is in plain English for people on the phone that aren't exactly sure. So think of CBRS as your own private cellular network inside your facility. So it's not public, it's not shared, it's private and belongs only to you. It's great because it's really locked down to prevent unauthorized access, gives you better cybersecurity. If people don't have the right tools to get on there, it's pretty tough for them to hack the network and get on there and get access to your information and devices. And it's a solution that covers every square inch of the warehouse. So we saw that people were concerned about, connectivity and, being able to keep devices on the network as one of their concerns, so that this helps provide better coverage within the warehouse. So less prone to interruption from things inside the warehouse. So it's definitely a good solution.
Excellent. And I have a follow-up question that I'll direct to Derek this time. Why does all that matter?
Why does all that matter? Very good question. So a little bit about CBRS as well. The technology has been available. It's only more recently that it's been more commercialized and available to companies and to take advantage of. And why does that matter? It provides an alternative method of communication that's unencumbered by public signals and has its own network in the sense that you can control what's on it. And you have, just by a sense of it being a private network, it does have its own security as well. And then, we touched on the application of the four walls. It's also applicable for large ports where Wi-Fi networks have less coverage areas, or large open areas and lots and such as those can definitely take advantage of this technology.
Okay, nice. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question about security specifically, and I'm going to give this one to Matt, actually. Another concern people have is about security. Can you talk a little bit about how CBRS helps with that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's not just the performance that you get with CBRS or 5G, it's also the protection. So no third-party traffic, you get cellular level encryption. You do need a SIM card to access a network, so it does help prevent unauthorized access. You've also gained more control over the network versus a public network that gives access to everyone. So it's not everybody that's drives by and sees your network is able to access it, because they won't be able to see it. And then also it's great for sensitive data environments. So companies doing pharmaceutical manufacturing, food storage, or any operation that's worried about compliance and data security, this is definitely a great solution for them.
Nice. All right, moving right along. I love the insight so far. So let's talk about what 5G actually means in real world environments, because this isn't the same 5G powering your phone. We're talking low latency, tons of connected devices, and full facility coverage. So what makes industrial 5G different? And how do CBRS and 5G work together when you're trying to scale fast without breaking stuff? Derek, do you want to walk us through what that looks like?
Yes, absolutely. So, there are a lot of features of private 5G and CBRS that make it appealing for companies to use now. I mean, compared with Wi-Fi, there's ultra low latency. You have instant communication between devices, servers, or any autonomous vehicles in the warehouse, for example. And so it really allows for new applications to be developed to function at those high speeds. Even in the way of deployments, so massive deployments can handle, the networks can handle those deployments due to the increased bandwidth on the network. So it can handle all of that traffic without interference from third-party traffic. And then just the nature of the networks, you have fewer access points within a certain area. And so it cuts down on some cost for any installations. And then it's an overall stable connection compared to others. And so all of those features combined make it a very appealing proposition.
Okay. I never thought about autonomous vehicles having network interference. That actually sounds kind of scary. So I think that this is a good solution for them. They should probably get this. So thanks for that. And I'm going to bring it back over to Matt. Do you have any use cases you could share with us?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Derek touched on autonomous vehicles. So if we think inside the four walls of the warehouse, you're going to have autonomous forklifts. You might have the autonomous mobile robots helping with different picking activities or other workflows within real-time video monitoring. So if you want to keep an eye on your operations, and then also augmented reality assisted repairs. So if you are running a repair operation and you've got people looking for the utilization of augmented reality to assist with that, you can do all of that stuff. And the beauty of that is it comes with zero lag with 5G. So you get the information pushed to the device quickly. It's right there, almost instantaneous. So there's no lag, there's no waiting. It also allows you to future-proof for additional applications and data processing, such as AI. So as we kind of start to proliferate more AI solutions in the warehouse, you'll be able to adapt with 5G because the amount of data that needs to move back and forth between the device and servers. And then also if you're looking to grow your operation. So if you want to add additional devices, or if you're adding IoT sensors and things like that, it makes it much easier to add those to a 5G network just because of the bandwidth that's there. So you've got plenty of access to add all that as well. And from another use case perspective, if you're looking at large outdoor yards, so Derek touched on that also, such as landscape supply companies, lumber yards, places where you cover significant area and you're both inside and outside. That can be difficult to install Wi-Fi access points outside and then have those, safe and secure. So if you get someone in a vehicle that drives through or is backing up or operating equipment near that, they could hit that and knock that out. If that goes out, then you lose connectivity when you're in the yard. Whereas a 5G access point, you could have more centrally located, probably a bit more secure from those kinds of accidental mishaps where people might run into things in the yard and knock the service out. So therefore, it provides that more stable communication and connection there with that.
Nice. I could definitely see the importance in that for sure. So moving on, thanks everyone for your input so far. The next question is, why does hardware choice matter when upgrading wireless? Can rugged mobile devices really make or break the success of a rollout? And I will ask Derek this one.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is critical in choosing the right device. And you have a lot of options out there and configurations, and you just have to see what works for your network, for your operations and your workflows. Starting with form factors, tablet, handheld, does it have keys or a full touchscreen? And then you have features such as durability. How rugged is my device? Will it work within the four walls and the way my associates operate on the workflows? So all critical things. And then of course, looking towards the future, you look at where networks are headed and looking at which devices have the ability to connect to a CBRS network, band 48, and so forth. And so those all become decisions on devices. And devices such as in the Honeywell mobility portfolio, we do offer every form factor. All of our latest releases are compatible with private networks and CBRS. We do test on third-party networks so that when devices do arrive, they are already validated that they can work on those networks, so you can be assured that you are covered. And we also offer our backend mobility edge platform. So you have the latest Android support and security on each of those devices.
So curveball question, can I run over it with a forklift in a lumber yard?
We don't recommend it, but I heard it has been done before. Yes.
Maybe it'll depend on how much is on the forklift, how many logs you have. All right, moving on. So Matt, I'm going to send this over to you. Can you tell us why this matters?
Sure. So Derek touched on it, the different form factors, right? So the beauty of that is you give your workers choice. So if someone likes that keypad device, and you've got someone who is maybe younger and is a little more used to, say, using an iPhone in their daily life, they're used to that full touch, you've got those options. And both of those form factors will come in a 5G solution, so you can get it on the network without any problem. But it provides that differentiation and gives the worker their choice. So they'll be happier ultimately using the device that they choose in their workflow. So that's one aspect of it. Derek also touched on our mobility edge platform. So anything that's built on that, solid, stable architecture provides you with a future-proof device so that you're not going to have to go out and replace those right away. So you do get that longevity with those, a lower total cost of ownership. So that's definitely a good thing. And then it's a fleet of devices that can actually keep up with the pace of your business. So as you grow and scale, these devices can grow and scale right along with the business that you're doing. So that's another good piece of it, especially as we start to add more and more of these data heavy workflows, add more AI into our workflows and into our processes. So that's definitely a good way to look at it when we see the different devices that are out there. And then with 5G itself, so any devices running on that, it does give you less downtime. So you spend less time searching for an access point or connection as you move through a facility. If it's indoors or outdoors, it does give you a better range, better connectivity, and not having to try and cycle from one access point to the next, so you don't have those losses in connectivity.
Sure. It makes a lot of sense what you say about different form factors, because if your employees aren't going to adopt it well, then there's no point in investing in new devices, right? So that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, that's definitely where our Hue Studio, Honeywell User Experience Group, they sit down and talk with people, to understand how they use their devices, how they work with them. So when the devices that we have are designed, it's actually designed with the end user in mind. So it's their feedback to provide to us so that we can build the devices that are going to be most useful in their workflows, and that they're also going to enjoy using the most when they're there, because it is a large portion of their day that they spend doing this. So they want to be able to have something that totally makes sense for them in their workflow.
That makes sense. All right. So moving on to cybersecurity, we talked about this a little bit already, but what makes CBRS and 5G any better when it comes to keeping things protected? And more importantly, how do you actually build something secure without dragging down your whole operation? I'm going to give this to Derek.
Great. For the private networks, just the nature of the network itself, being able to access it with a SIM card on your device, it does provide that protection in those cases. And both Honeywell and omniQ, we both have a deep focus on security across multiple domains. We invest money into research and developing the right framework so that we do offer that. security first frameworks from network setup to device lockdowns. We do design security into our products and policies. For the Honeywell devices, best way to ensure you have a secure device, make sure you're running the latest operating system and our security patches in the form of maintenance releases. Overall, when you look at zero trust architecture, it becomes essential. Network segmentation, endpoint hardening, and audits are critical, especially as AI, vision systems, and IoT devices expand on that surface. So,
Absolutely, definitely important to consider, especially with the way of the world going more and more towards AI every single day. So it's good to have. Moving on, these next questions are for Tom. Tom, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen with companies trying to modernize their wireless setup?
The biggest one, they try to shortcut the process. Maybe it's budget pressure, maybe it's time, but they go for a quick fix and hope for the best. You'll see companies drop in a few access points without doing a proper survey, just based on square footage. But warehouses aren't empty boxes. They're filled with metal racks, forklifts, shifting inventory. That kind of environment eats signals alive. And sometimes coverage looks fine. You've got bars everywhere, but the performance isn't there. Devices drop off, latency spikes, and scanners take forever to respond. That's what happens when the network isn't built for capacity. Another big one is interference. In a real world operation, you have other wireless devices, machinery, and even neighboring networks, all competing for the same space. If you're not accounting for that up front, it's going to cause problems. And finally, security. People tend to save that for last, like they'll just deal with it once everything's online. But that's where the vulnerabilities sneak in. And once you're live, fixing it gets way harder and way more expensive.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So, Tom, what should they be doing instead?
Well, they need to start with a real plan and a fresh site survey. Don't assume what worked 5 years ago is still right. Workflows and devices have probably changed. You've got to design for both coverage and capacity. That means understanding where the traffic is, where the devices move, and what kind of bandwidth you actually need. And security needs to be part of that plan from the very beginning, not something you tack on at the end. Think about how people and devices are connecting, what kind of access they need, how to separate sensitive traffic and everything else. Whether that's setting up user roles or isolating certain devices or making sure the right encryption is in place. It all needs to be built into the design, not patched in later. Wireless isn't just infrastructure anymore. It's core to how your operation runs. So if you build it like an afterthought, it's going to act like one.
Makes sense. That's great insight. Thank you. Now let's talk about how to build wireless the right way. What are some things to consider?
Well, it really starts with understanding how your operation actually runs, not just what the floor plan says. Spending time out there, watch how people move, where the congestion happens, how the devices are being used. That's where the design starts to take shape. Then think long term. If automation's on your roadmap, more devices, more mobility, your wireless setup needs to be ready to scale. A system that barely works today won't cut it 6 months from now. Performance matters too, not just signal strength. It's about understanding pressure, peak hours, high throughput, dozens of devices hitting the network all at once. That's where a good design really proves itself. And finally, you've got to think about how you're going to manage the network once it's live. Visibility alerts, remote troubleshooting, that's stuff not a luxury. It's what keeps your team moving and when something breaks. So it's not just about throwing in more access points. It's about building a system that fits your environment, grows with your business, and gives you control day to day.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, from the use cases we heard earlier, lumber yards and autonomous vehicles, there definitely isn't one right way to do things. So it definitely makes sense that you would need to really survey your environment before you make those decisions. So thank you, Tom. And then I think it's time to get some questions from the audience. So let's give just a minute for some questions to come in, and then we'll jump to Q&A. All right, we got one already. So I'm going to start with this one, and anyone can answer, but I think it might be good for Tom. What is a realistic deployment timeline?
Well, really, realistically, you look at it in about 3 to 5 months for a full deployment, depending on the size and the complexity. It starts with requirements gathering, understanding the site, pulling floor plans, scoping needs. That usually takes a week or two. Design is next. For larger sites, plan at least 2 weeks, maybe more. Then there's material lead time. That consists of access points, cabling, mount. That could take up to 30 days, depending on availability. Implementation runs anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on how it's phased in. And finally, testing and sign off. Usually about a week to confirm everything's running like it should. So all in all, fast track is around 13 weeks, but it can stretch to 5 months for a big or complex site. And during that time, we're constantly testing and adjusting to make sure it all performs.
Okay, now that definitely makes sense. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, I have another one. So how do I avoid locking into one wireless approach that might be outdated in a few years? So I think I can, Tom, you could answer this one too.
Sure. That's a really smart question. Honestly, a really common concern. You don't want to build a wireless system that's outdated before it's even paid off. The best way to avoid that is by designing with flexibility in mind from the start. Go modular where you can, so it's easier to expand or swap things out later without rebuilding the whole thing. Stick with open standards and current technology. Wi-Fi 6, cloud-based management, stuff that gives you room to grow and doesn't lock you into one path. And don't just design for what you need today. Think about how many more users, devices, and applications you're going to have down the line, because it's always more than you expect. If your network can't flex and scale with the business, it's going to last a lot longer and save a lot of pain later on.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another one that just came in. Who would be the best to assist with a new wireless implementation? So anyone can answer this one.
Yeah, I would say who would be best. I think it's the partner definitely is going to be the one that's going to have the expertise either in, helping select the device, but then also, helping integrate with if there's any ISVs, independent software vendors that need to be involved in that as well. The partner is always a great one to be able to kind of, do the project management and quarterback that piece of it to make sure that, they're getting the right people involved. And, as the OEM, Honeywell is always here to help, right? So if there's questions about devices or, hey, I'm looking for a 5G device and which ones, might be the best for my application, like we can definitely help with that as well. But I think from a network build out and including and involving all of the additional support people that would need to be there, it's definitely the partner has a strong position in that, and that's where they shine.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just call us and we will assemble the right team for your project. Start there. All right, so I have another one. What happens if my workers are still using older handhelds? Will they need all new devices? Matt, do you want to do this one?
Sure. Yeah, so If you do have workers using older handhelds, I guess it all depends on what your roadmap or what your future plans look like. So if you're looking to keep certain workflows consistent and steady, or you have, maybe some desktop printers and you don't need to have something mobile that's moving around and you just have a handful of people that move through the warehouse, that would be a great place to say, hey, if we've got people traversing from one side of the warehouse to another, maybe those are the devices that we roll into a 5G solution, just because it does provide that better connectivity and you don't have to keep moving from access point to access point as you move through. But if you have some that are kind of stationary in a specific area within the warehouse and it works off a single access point, there's less changing in that regard, then you could keep using your older devices. So it's kind of a, lay it out there and assess what things look like today, where you see yourself going, and then you can kind of figure out what you can do to keep your stuff as it is today. And then as you slowly transition to, say, a 5G or CBRS solution, then you can introduce those devices as necessary.
Nice. All right, let's see. Well, I like this question. Who should I contact at OmniQ for more details? Can I answer that? In the next slide, there will be our contact information. You can also just reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can call us at the phone number listed, or you can reply to the email where I send you follow-up information. I hope that would allow me answering a question. I have one more. All right, Tom, I'm going to give this one to you. We're not a huge operation, just one warehouse. Does private wireless still make sense for a business of our size?
That's a really fair question. If you're running a single warehouse with modest volume, does private wireless still make sense? The short answer is yes. It's less about size of your operation and more about your need for the needs for the network to do. If you're dealing with interference, spotty Wi-Fi, or you're running into apps that can't afford to lag or drop, private wireless gives you more control, better reliability, and strong performance. It does come up front with some cost and complexity, no question. But if time, coverage, or security are starting to hold you back, it could be a smart move, even for a smaller site.
Nice. I don't see any more just yet. We'll give it just another second and then we can give you guys some time back in your day. Okay. Well, 3 takeaways. Oh, I just got one. Oh, that was a thank you. You're welcome. So 3 takeaways. With CBRS, companies get their own network. That means better control over security, traffic, and performance without waiting for a telecom giant to fix a drop. CBRS gives you dedicated, interference-free lane that's designed for industrial use. Paired with the right device management and software tools, it lets you build a network that's optimized for your actual operation. The real power comes from combining the right wireless foundation with the right software and device strategy. CBRS is flexible, but success depends on how you configure it to fit your operations and your workflows and your goals. So we will be sending out some free resources after this session. Be on the lookout for that. And remember, the OmniQ is here to help. So just let us know if you have any questions, and thank you for joining us today.